Hello, I didn't mean to turn on back that quickly, but might as well jump into part two. This is Wes Bridle. This is another Kingdom Calling Economic Update video. This is part two on what's going on in the U.S. economy. And all of these videos are short-term updates that follow after the Coming Storm video, which we did 2 years ago, that tells you big picture what's going on in the U.S. and world economy. You should really go back and take a look at that, and it'll give you a better understanding of what we're going through. So let me jump in. Occupy Wall Street, one of the things they were saying a while back is they wanted a 1% global financial tax. It's really interesting. This ragtag crew that didn't even really have any coherent message all of a sudden comes up with that. Well, that's George Soros's big thing that he's been trying to push. And now you have in Durban, South Africa, you have these so-called green people who, even though man-made global warming has been totally blown out of the water, the people that represent that agenda were determined in multiple ways to be fabricating their evidence. They're being paid millions of dollars by governments to come up with this notion that people are creating global warming. And it was found out that they were lying, they were fabricating their evidence. So if it was any kind of a rational thing, there would be no more talk of that. But the people behind it don't really care. The reason they wanted the evidence fabricated in the first place was so that they could take over and have a one world government. And so they don't care that their evidence is gone. A lot of people are still believing that this is a real thing, and they're pushing forward to get more and more control. One of the things that was talked about in Durban, South Africa, again, is this 1% world tax on financial transactions, so that they can have a lot of money coming to them so that they can then control the world. It's hard to do that without money, and so that's what they're trying to do. What blew me away was the Vatican stepping up and calling for a 1% financial tax on world currency transactions. Why is the Vatican, nothing against Catholics, because in my mind they're part of a failing church system that the Lord is doing away with in general, so this is not a particular word against Catholics. But it's not really surprising that the Vatican is lining up with them, but it's still sort of shocking to me that they're lining up with one world power agenda. I talked a little bit about leading economic indicators in the last one, so I'm not going to do that again. Government spies. This is kind of interesting. The Department of Homeland Security is working on a program called the FAST, F-A-S-T program. That's an acronym for something, to predict your future behavior. So they're in the early stages of working on this, but it's like the Minority Report, if you remember that movie where they arrested people before they committed a crime, because they had psychics in bathtubs, and that's what they figured out. Well, maybe not the psychic in the bathtub part, but the Department of Homeland Security is actually working on a program like this now. That's kind of scary. The Fed is hiring, last I saw they were looking to hire, they're asking for quotes from companies for social listening platform. So they want to see what people are saying on like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I don't know. And then they want to come in and respond and try to sway public opinion. Why is the Federal Reserve worrying about that? If they were just doing what was best, they wouldn't need to be swaying public opinion. It's a massive, ugly propaganda that's, I don't know, to me that's very sickening that they would even want to be involved in such a thing, wasting our money to do so. Pew Center study, sorry, I'm jumping around. Let's see, 60 Minutes program came out and shocked people. It shocked me that people were shocked. That U.S. politicians trade on insider information. That was the big aha moment of the 60 Minutes. They had kind of a smoking gun. That's news to people. They've been doing this for a long, long time. It's not illegal. The government can do this. They are doing it. They make tremendous amount of money. You see these politicians go in as kind of broke, normal people. They come out multi-millionaires. You know, this is what's happening. I was kind of shocked that people are shocked by that. Paulson and Bernanke warned politicians days before the 2008 meltdown of exactly what was about to happen. So they're able to kind of trade on this information while the general public is not. There's talk about them, you know, changing these rules now that the public kind of found out about it. But I haven't analyzed it. I've seen people analyze it, saying it's just a show, which is usually how they respond to these things. Travel Association study found that they did a study that found U.S. is losing hundreds of billions of dollars because foreign travelers don't want to come here anymore. Years ago, I was young. My family's been in the jewelry business, and we were going to go to South Africa. I don't remember if that's why we were going, or I don't remember why. But we were going to go. I was getting to tag along as a kid. I had an aunt die, and we ended up not going on that trip. But I remember hearing about the diamond mines, and it sounded really cool to me to go into a diamond mine and get to see diamonds in the walls, and just that sounded amazing. I really wanted to go. But then I heard the price that you have to pay to go into that. They're worried that people will take diamonds from the walls and hide them somewhere so that they come out of this tour with free diamonds. So you have to agree, if you go into one of these mines, for an absolute full body search. I mean, stripping you naked, looking in every possible place in your body that you might hide a diamond. Well, my family and I decided we didn't want to see a diamond mine that bad. Who would? I mean, I'm just not willing to put up with that in order to go see a diamond mine. Well, foreigners around the world are deciding this. As the U.S. has all these new restrictions at the airport that they make you go through, it's inhuman the way they're treating us. We, for some reason, they do a little bit at a time, and so each time they have a new step of intrusion, we don't notice it because it's only a little worse than it was before. But it's gotten to be that it's a totally different experience to go through an airport in the United States today than it was in the year 2000. The things that they're doing aren't helping. The Israelis are the best in the world at doing this. They don't do any of the things that we do. They have a totally different system. And you don't feel like a terrorist when you go through the Israeli airport. Here you do. And so you have tons and tons of foreigners not willing to visit the United States anymore because they don't want to feel like a prisoner. They didn't do anything wrong. They're going on vacation to have a good time, not to be felt up. And so, somebody did a study and said we're losing hundreds of millions of free money. This money could be coming to the United States. People would like to visit the United States for the good things here, but they don't want to come if they have to feel like a terrorist in order to do so. And so that's some horrible mistakes the United States has been making. The Senate passed a bill to make it legal for the Army to incarcerate a U.S. citizen. I wrote this a couple of days ago, and there's actually an update I saw this morning. They're changing it around a little bit, so it's not the Army, but it's the president who basically has authority over this. It looks, from what I read, it looks like it will get passed. So the United States will now be able to detain indefinitely a United States citizen for thinking they're a terrorist without charging them with anything, without any sort of proof. They can just, because they want to, detain a U.S. citizen. That is 100% against the will of the founders of this country and what most people stand for, yet we sit idly by while our politicians do this sort of thing. James Madison said, "If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy." So he knew. It's amazing to go back and read what the founding fathers predicted. They knew that it's not the way men work to keep a good thing very long, but we're fallen and we end up destroying things and things just get ugly. So the founders of this country tried to set up the best possible country that they could, knowing in the end they would fail. And so they have all these amazing quotes about how things are going to go ugly in the end, and we're doing exactly what they predicted we would do. So it's kind of sad in a way. Let's see, the U.S. pipeline industry is about 170 years old. It's the safest, most efficient way to transport oil and gas, and yet the Democrats are totally against that. I read this morning the Republicans are putting that bill together with the Social Security income tax deduction bill together to maybe make Obama sign it, but the Democrats don't want this bill for. It's just bizarre. So on the last point I was made, it's the Republicans that are being absolutely ridiculous. On this point, the Democrats are being ridiculous. You're saying, I mean, it's a totally political stance. We have to use oil and gas. Our country's absolutely dependent on it. It's a nice dream to say we want to get all our electricity from solar and wind. It's totally impractical. It's not going to happen. And so, if you're a little child and you're just making up stories, you can say, well, that's a wonderful stance to take. If you're in president or Congress, you have to be a little realistic, and we need oil and gas. Otherwise, we go into the Stone Ages immediately. Okay, so we need oil and gas. Well, right now we're dependent on countries like Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Venezuela, countries that do horrible things that don't necessarily like us. I mean, we're talking terrorism, we're talking people that threaten us all the time. We're dependent on those countries to give us our oil. We actually have maybe more oil than any other country in the planet, but it's kind of stuck in places that needs pipeline to get it out. In saying we, I'm including Canada, because a lot of this is coming from the oil sands up there. So we have a tremendous amount. We need these pipelines. Pipelines have been around 170 years. It's not a newfangled technology that might or might not be dangerous. We know very well it is the best way to transport it, and yet Democrats are against this for some reason. It's absolutely ridiculous. The 43-year-old notary who was the whistleblower on the foreclosure fraud, I believe that was Bank of America, but it wasn't in the story, was found dead right before he was due in court. So don't mess with the big banks, I guess. Facts came to light that Paulson shared with Goldman Buddy hedge fund managers that Fannie and Freddie were about to go down before they went down here a couple years ago. Paulson, the head of the U.S. Treasury, is off telling his old buddies from Goldman Sachs exactly what's going to happen before it happens. That's crony capitalism at the highest form. You got Occupy Wall Street people railing against capitalism. There's nothing capitalistic about what's been going on in Washington and New York. Capitalism is supposed to imply a free market where there's not government interference. What's been going on in Washington and New York is the government is colluding with the big banks in order to manipulate things. That's called fascism. That's not capitalism. And so, unfortunately, we have a fascist system here in a large part. At the small level, it's still fairly capitalistic, although dealing with a large amount of bureaucracy and taxes. But at the highest levels, there's a lot of ugly fascism going on. And that's just, fascism is a word that triggers things in people, but there's a definition for fascism. It's when the government and the large companies collude to do things in their way, and that's what we have. So by definition, we have a fascist system in large part. And so let's see, I think that's all I have for this video. That might be my last video. Wow, that's wonderful. If you haven't seen the Coming Storm video, I highly recommend it. There's a link to watch that for free, and it's pretty important for what's going on. Things are going to change dramatically from the life you've always known, and so it's good to kind of have an understanding of these things. It helps you to be at peace, seek the Lord, understand what's happening, rather than being just swaying in the wind as things are getting devastated around you. Thank you for watching. God bless you.